everything's working over there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's awesome. So,
Let me put my phone here.
yeah,
Let me shut my phone off.
okay. Yeah, so I'd just like to welcome everyone to the Indigenous Wellness Training Society podcast. This is basically the episode 1. On this episode, we're going to be interviewing Ray Thunderchild. I don't know if you're like a doctor or something.
Ray G.
Ray G. Thunderchild.
Yeah, because there's 4 Ray Thunderchilds.
Oh, wow.
When you talk about Ray G, everybody knows who that is.
Oh, yeah.
Okay?
Well, yeah, my name is Jackson, and we believe recovery is the foundation of our success. So all our services are basically based upon the 12-step model, which states recovery is a process. Includes admitting that we cannot control our addictions, recognition that a higher power can give us strength, examine our past errors, make direct amends for those errors, and learn to live a new life with a new code of behavior so that we could help others. So that's what our hope is today in this episode, and everything will be directed towards recovery. So we'll get started here. So yeah, you said you come from the Thunderchild Cree Nation?
Yeah, up in Saskatchewan.
Cool.
And I've been in BC here for 30 years, though. I ran away from all of that stuff that we talk about, addictions.
Oh, yeah.
I ran away from all of that.
Oh.
I come to the West Coast to recover, and I've done a wonderful job doing that.
Yeah.
It's been a long road, but you know what? It is roadable. It is doable.
Yeah.
That's what I always tell people. It's doable. You can do it.
Yeah.
Put your mind to it. You can do it.
Yeah, my thought is, if I could do it, then anyone could do it. Like,
What?
if I could do it, anyone could do it. Like,
Oh, yeah. Of course, yeah. Well, you know what? I was told by my late father, he says, I don't like you being here. I was living in Edmonton. I was working as a bouncer. I got paid to beat people up legally. But I didn't like that lifestyle. I didn't like hurting anybody at all. I didn't even like hurting me. Then going home the next day when my hands are all swelled up. No, can't have that. So what I needed to do was change. My mother, my late father was sitting there. She wanted to do change, get out of here. Leave. Go start a new life somewhere else, he said. It's after my son's mother left me. I was going through depression, drinking all the time, fighting all the time. But you know what's really funny about the whole thing was there was no drugs involved. It was just alcohol. I've never really been much of a drug user growing up. Like I've never actually, I guess maybe the furthest I've gone was smoking marijuana. That's about it. Other than that, you'll never see a track mark on me. You'll never see my nose red because of the coke that they take. My brother was addicted to coke. He moved to Washington to recover also, where 23 years he was there. What a recovery he did too. He saw me do recovery here, that he wanted to do the same thing. Done a wonderful thing for himself. Cancer got him and COVID got him. I'm still alive here. I'm still doing good anyway, so.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. So, how is it like back home, where you're from?
Well, back home, they still, back in my reservation, they still have this lockdown up there. They have the security at the entrances of every reservation gate. Even the back roads are all monitored. They take your temperature. Now they have this ID card saying that you've been vaccinated, It's really strict, but however, it's good for the elderly people that this is really strict, because if it wasn't strict enough, we'd all have people dying there. Especially my mother, she's still alive at 90. In the way they have to be really careful. My sisters are all really careful how they look after her. Not just my sisters, my nieces, grandnieces, all look after her.
Wow.
I wish I had that much attention here.
I should, if I had, I could, clapping, cheering. There's a button.
But But you know, it's been a good ride. It's been a really good ride living in Vancouver. Been married 27 years now.
Wow.
Yeah, I met my wife. My father told me to go find a wife someplace away from here. You're related to too many people, he said. So, and I believe it. Like everywhere I go, Manitoba, Saskatchewan, Alberta, Montana, North Dakota, Minnesota, like, you know, Ontario, everywhere I go, except BC, everywhere I go, I've somehow related to them. Through my grandfather, that is. So, you know, that's what he said. My grandmother made a joke out of it. I said, "Don't worry, that's not your grandpa anyway." She said, okay.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, they're always joking with each other. They're passed on, both of them, though. But they left me great teachings. So what I know today of how I look after myself is what they've taught me how to do. They taught me how to look after myself mentally, and not so much physically because I'm working all the time. Spiritually, I do that too. That's why I carry my drum with me everywhere I go. And I do a lot of teachings in my singing world because I'm a singer, I'm a teacher. I've reached that stage where I'm an elder now. I've made it to 65. Wow. Never thought I'd make it this far, but here I am. My wife is 2 years older than I am. But you know what? I still love her, no matter who she is, you know.
Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah. So, so you've been all over the world then, type thing?
All over you know what? I've never been outside North America, but I've been mostly in, like, Canada, United States. I've traveled quite extensively, going to what they call powwows. I've gone to many powwows everywhere, singing. And sometimes I'm working them, like an arena director or the master of ceremonies. One of those two sometimes I get caught up in, but mostly singing, though. I sit at a big drum, and I sing with a bunch of, sometimes there's a group from Saskatchewan. I don't know how many, I've sang with so many groups from Saskatchewan. I started my own group here in Vancouver, but you know what the problem is? I don't think I call it a problem. It's when I teach these young people how to sing, when they're starting to develop, they're starting to develop into good singers. Somebody comes along, grabs them, take them to their drum.
Yeah.
But that's okay, that's an honor.
Oh, yeah.
That's an honor for me because they chose my singer I taught.
Oh, yeah.
And to them, it's, I got your singer now. It doesn't matter. The thing is, the kid is learning from somebody different.
Yeah.
That's a big thing for me.
Yeah.
You know, learning from different people. I had 8 teachers growing up in the powwow world. And I've been singing since I was 5. Or since I can remember anyways. I've been, my grandfather, my father, all my uncles, they were all singers. Growing up in a room maybe a little bit smaller than this, in a log cabin. That's what I grew up in.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, if you ever, I don't know if you know a guy by the name of Alan Sapp.
No.
He's an artist. Google him. Look at his work. That's how I grew up. Yeah, he's not much older than me, but he's a phenomenal artist, lifelike pictures. And he tells the story of how we grew up, how we hauled wood with the horse team drawn, with a horse and a sled, or a wagon in the summertime, and how we all worked together. Because back then, I don't think there was really much, as a matter of fact, I know, there was never much drugs. Nobody ever knew about drugs, but they sure knew about alcohol, though. But like, wine, that 1 gallon wine they tip in there.
Yeah, I
That's
did
the kind of
that
thing they
after
used
that.
to drink.
Yeah.
I grew up with
Home
those.
brew, eh?
Home brew. They held that one,
Yeah.
and that's how they drink it, right?
The reasons, yeah.
Here I am, learning about all of that. So I want to share a little story with you, okay? Back in 1962, I can remember, I was like 6 years old. We went to the Saskatoon Pioneer Days. my late grandfather was a chief, Grand Chief of Saskatchewan. And they had a big Indian village. There's a big, like a big circle, a block in the whole city, but with a high fence on it, a big city block. And Indigenous people from all over Saskatchewan come there by wagon, by horse, whoever had vehicles. We came there by a big grain truck. One of my uncles had a big grain truck. That's how we got there.
Oh, yeah.
And we all got there, and then we set up our encampment. One thing about this camp, there was never any white people allowed in there. Police were strict, only because my grandfather made it so. He said the white man will bring in alcohol and get something cheap from the Indigenous people, or get it they'll just take it. So they avoided a lot of that. When they came, when the RCMP were really, the only thing they could do is take pictures from the fence. Us little kids, they used to have these little pull tabs for, a draw, like 10 cents, 5 cents, a quarter, or free. Little stuffs that you pull them like that.
Yeah.
They only buy this long.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and it's you pay a quarter, you fill your name in. So we used to sell these little tickets, and then leave your phone number on if you got a phone. Back then, nobody had any phones back then. But they said, come tonight, they're making a draw. They used to look at this, how come there's not very many tickets sold? And yet, about 200 books were sold. What happened to the money? There's a pioneer, there's a fair going on. We have to have money too, right? So here we are. And then when that one day, a big limo pulled up. And I will never forget that day, because you know who stepped out was Prime Minister John Diefenbaker. There's another story about him and my grandfather. They went to war together, World War II. It was the First Nations people who rescued him. He got shot, but my grandfather said, we never leave a comrade behind, no matter what. They grabbed him by the shoulder, by the collar, they dragged him. What he said was like 5 miles. He said his behind has never been so raw because of him dragging him. His clothes wore out, but he didn't care. He was alive. So he came out, and they opened the gates. My grandfather came out with his full traditional regalia, and the other chiefs followed him. And then when he was at that gate, my grandfather invited him, but the Secret Service or whoever, the bodyguards, did not want him to go in there alone. And I can remember the words that Diefenbaker used that time. I was just a little boy, still in residential school. And when he told them, he said, look, these people saved my life in war. What makes you think they're going to do anything now? And all the Secret Service, all of them just surrounded the whole fence. I swear, there must have been 500 of those, because they're looking after, because they didn't want anybody, I don't know what they didn't want anybody to do, but they really surrounded that fence right completely. They see black suits all the way around, right to the main gate. My grandfather and Diefenbaker, John Diefenbaker, walked towards the teepee, the center of the fence, the whole encampment. They went into the teepee, and all the chiefs followed in there too. They had a huge pipe ceremony. Something he said, Prime Minister Diefenbaker said, he will never forget that. Forget that pipe ceremony, because he learned so much in there from all the chiefs, the concerns, the racism that he learned, a lot of that. The first thing he said was going to shut down was the residential schools. And he started shutting them down. Slowly. It took for many, in 1996, when finally the last one shut down. But he made it his mandate to shut them all down. That was a different government that did this. Now this is another government that's doing, trying to change it all.
Yeah.
But this was in 1962 when I saw the whole thing myself. Like, you know, I witnessed the whole thing right there. And then he told them that we're going to be walking around the exhibition now. But you know who else? Who came along? Who came along that? Johnny Cash, Tommy Hunter, Gordy Tapp, and Buster Keaton. I was just a little boy when I met these guys. And then we're walking around and dad, three of us brothers. I always walked around with my dad. But my dad never went anywhere without us, three of us. Johnny Cash picked me up, put me on his shoulders. And the other one picked up, Tommy Hunter picked one up, and Gordy Tapp picked one up. Three of us are riding in the shoulders of these big, huge celebrities. Like, wow, I couldn't believe like how much, you know, then people taking pictures. If I could, you know, get back, if I could find them somehow, maybe look in the archives, I'll find those pictures. See that little boy riding on Johnny Cash's shoulder. And then they came and invited my grandfather to enter the wild pony race. I have four of them, my dad, all my uncles, my three uncles, four of them. A wild pony they had to go and catch. They had to tame so they can ride them. They're racing against Buster Keaton and his buffalo. So you know, all standing the wild horses running around and that, and all these little bow-legged little cowboys, you know, cigarettes sticking out and walking around their saddle, like, you know, walking around like they mean business. And walking around in their bow legs and looking around for a horse. Had a rope and trying to rope a horse, they couldn't do it. And the horses were too fast. So my grandfather was just sitting there. I can still remember standing beside him. Jesqua. He says, wait. He says in Cree. He went over to the table and he picked a handful of sugar cubes. Just put them in his pocket and he said, Ana kawaps kasaganet. Ntawa pa me wanana kate tapi. He said, the one with the white socks, go to him. That's the one you're going to ride. Feed him the sugar, he said. So my dad did that, you know, fed him the sugar. And the horse was, you know, he just walked up to the horse slowly the way. And the horse came up to him, I guess smelled the sugar or something, I don't know. But anyways, the minute that horse came there, he started eating that thing like that, my dad grabbed him by the hair and he just jumped right on like that without a bridle or a saddle. That's how we rode in the first place, right? And then he just hit that horse hard and he went right out the gate. Everybody was screaming, watching my dad had long hair and he just went right down and just kept hitting him in the saddle, just riding like that. And doors opened right up. Buster Keaton came out with his buffalo. Now he's racing after my dad. Back then in 1962, $1,000 was a lot of money. That's what the first prize money was. Those guys didn't even rope a horse or even yet alone saddle a horse. When my dad finished the finish line, and they all just looked at him like that. and then they taught him how to stop the wild horse. So my grandpa told him, he said, when he doesn't stop, grab him by the ears and yank back, he'll stop. Then my dad was riding along, he just pulled that horse by the ears like that, and that horse stopped still, he jumped off. The horse was bucking away, and he was just yelling. The press and even Diefenbaker came out there, they welcomed him to the finish line. Buster Keaton came out there, and he said, good one, that's all he said, And that, you know, then I remembered him coming to sit beside me like that. It was Buffalo. He was sitting there. And he asked me, he said, would you like to ride my Buffalo? I looked at him. I went to that. He put me on top of the back of that Buffalo. Oh, my God. I could see the whole world up there. I could see how he saw things. But this was a story that always stays in my head with me. August of 1962. See how good of a memory I still have? I'm surprised I still remember these things, right? But, you know, then we went to that the encampment again. 1 o'clock they were having the power, not noon, high noon, is when, the minute that shadow hit that one post at noon, they hit that drum and they started dancing. And they invited Diefenbaker to come up there and dance. And, everybody else did that. And then my dad and grandpa led the whole thing. All afternoon, there was a feast and a powwow happening, and he was there. And finally, when he left, then all these security people walked in like that. They blocked the entranceway so he can walk right through him, and my grandpa can walk through, and then he would say goodbye to him. That was the last time I ever saw John Diefenbaker. Wow. First and last time. And he called me my boy. When he was in, he shook my hand, he shook the three of us brothers. We had, my little brothers, they had white shirt, a little tie, braids on.
That's his sons, yeah.
Yeah, and little braids on like that. We were so proud. My dad was always so proud of us, the three of us brothers. He always took us everywhere he went. He never left us behind. My mother would be sitting with my other brother and my other sister out there, looking after them. And then while the three of us and my dad would walk around all over town, the three of them, he never, like I said, he never left us behind. We were always right behind him, him and my grandpa. Yeah, all three of us brothers. And those are the good old days that I can remember how much child safety was to my dad, and then the one thing that he didn't want us, the three of us, to go to residential school. He stopped that. When the 60 scoop came in, he avoided all that. They came to get us. Yeah. But my dad didn't allow them. Oh. He beat the living daylights out of them, the two of them. Oh, yeah. Wow. However, my dad, when they went to get the police, 3 police cars came there. Stood in front of the house, stopped in front of the house, and my mother came out. I stood in the doorway. These 6 cops held guns to my mother. Kept asking my dad to come out. You are under arrest, they kept saying. My dad stepped out. He was in his full police uniform. My father was the captain, the chief of police. Oh, wow. And these guys, and they see these, and they put their guns up really fast. Oh. And these guys, what's going on? He said, sir, we can't touch him. He's the chief of police. Oh, yeah. And 3 of us are standing, and one of them had me by the hand of that. Oh. Then he let me go like that. And he said, no. He doesn't want his boys to go. That's fine with us. Oh, yeah. The RCMP got back, and he told me, you guys go back to your stations. I will go deal with you as soon as this whole thing is done. Oh. You two stay, he said. Oh. There's 2 workers, and they were going to go, and they're all black and blue, beaten up. And then he told them never to come back. Mm-hmm. One last time, he punched that one guy. I was so proud of my dad. He looked after his boy, because he went through residential school. Yeah. And what he went through, he didn't want us to go through. Yeah. He didn't want us to live with that pain, to live with that torment, to live with whatever he went through, right? But he was really... he was one of those kind of guys who did not allow anybody to come and try to take his family. He wasn't the kind of guy, he was the kind of guy who would die to protect his boys. He was proud of the proudest I've ever seen any man to have 3 sons. Every time he walks out the house, come on, boys, we all 3 of us will go along with him. I'll jump in the back seat of the car, we go. And that was the way that we grew up, the loyalty that we had. My grandfather, my other cousins went to residential school because their parents passed away. And nobody to look after them. So my grandfather and my grandmother looked after all of them, but they were getting to a point where they were getting a little old. So they went and, he tried his best to look after them, all my cousins. But my dad, I guess, was the one that was really, really instrumental in showing them how to look for and all my aunts and uncles who had their kids, they showed their love in the same way. All of us grew up together in that safe manner. protected by the family,
Yeah.
especially the woman, protected by the woman.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know, when something comes up like that, my mother would step up to that and she would tell him who her husband was. My husband is the chief of police. You can't do nothing. I guess when they hear that, Victor Thunderchild, they said, oh, no, I ain't going anywhere near those boys. Which is something that made me very proud, like, you know, to grow up this way. Like, I'm 65 today, knock on wood, when I say this, I've never been in jail in my life. Never. I don't even have a criminal record. That's something I'm very proud to say. Like, you know, not a lot of men can say that.
Yeah, I know.
But following that safety of my late father, my grandfather, the teachings of my grandmother, my late grandmother, and my mother, the teachings of my late uncles, late aunties, the teachings that they brought forth to me, I used them all my life, especially with my singing. My singing has always been very number one thing. One day my wife asked a stupid question. She said, if I had a choice between me or your singing, what would you take? I said, make sure you lock the door on your way out, okay? You would do, hey, come on, don't ever question me about that. I grew up this way. Don't change that fact that I grew up this way. You cannot take that away from me. And I won't allow you to take that away. Even my grandmother used to say when we had our long hair, every one of us that had long hair, she was the one who looked after our hair, not our mother. Oh no, my grandmother would come along because we all lived in a small cabin, right, in one house. And she would have this whole brush our hair every night. My hair was halfway down to my calves when I was a kid. That's how long, really strong braid. And my grandmother would, every time she sees my hair, something wrong, she would trim a little bit at the bottom. And then she would continue to braid it really tight and wash it with bush tea. Never with shampoo. We never used shampoo because we didn't know what it was. But bush tea is a little leaf that you find in the bush. She boils that and sits us back and lets our hair soak in there. Strong hair too. Long, big, thick braid in the back like that and wrap it around my neck, you know, and sit around there and even going to school playing sports, I had to do that. Yeah, everybody, what the hell is that around your neck? It's just my hair. You what? They said, and then I go like that, and I go and I turn around and sometimes I'd slap him with it. What the hell is that? Wow, is that ever long? I said, yeah, my late grandmother, my grandmother looks after my hair. And I went to school in Prince Albert, Saskatchewan in the late 60s. Early 70s, I went to school there. Every little white girl wanted to touch my hair, and I'd have to sit them back, send them, say, sorry girls, you know, and I'm not supposed to allow anybody to touch my hair but my sister, my mother, or my grandmother. Too young to have a wife, I thought. So yeah, and then there was the white boys who didn't believe in our history. One of them came to school with scissors in his hand. You got a free haircut today, they said. Oh, really? My two brothers got up. The three of you are going to get a haircut today, I said. And then I went up to there, and because I was in grade 7. I went to my locker, I put some tape around my fist, like, you know, that white tape they have in there. I kept going like that. What are you doing? He said, oh, trust me, you'll know what I have these for. Right to the tape like that, nicely. That one boy came up with that scissors right behind me, and as hard as I could, man, I shattered his jaw.
Oh, wow.
Then they thought twice.
Oh, yeah.
Then they walked away. They know we're not going to put up with that.
Oh, yeah.
And then when the teacher saw me do that, and I told them I was protecting myself, they were trying to cut my hair.
Oh, yeah.
They were what? They said, so anyways, the poor kid the jaw that I smashed, his father came there. who just happened to be the mayor of the city. His son's jaw shattered, coming to the school, to confront me. Just wait, I'll call my dad. I know my dad will want to hear this. So my late father, he came in with my lawyer. Oh yeah, my dad knew what he had the smarts, right? And the lawyer and the principal asked him, said, "Sir, what are you doing here?" He said, "This is my client. You don't need a lawyer." "Oh yeah, you'll need a lawyer for this. We're suing this man." He said, "Why?" He said, "They're trying to cut this boy's hair." That's bullying. Bullying. And I got up, I said, "You know what, sir? Your son is the biggest bully in this whole school because you're the mayor." And he looked at his son, he said, "Is this right, son?" He said, and he just there, and he didn't know what to say. I wasn't putting up with any of his, whatever that they're going to do to me. I will fight. If I'm backed in the corner, I will fight. Other than that, I won't start nothing. But my father taught me how to defend myself. He taught me how to look after myself in the way that he looked after me. My safety has been his concern all his life. Wow. And what he raised this boy to be is a product of him. And I value that. I said, one guy told me, he said, "You're just like your dad." He said, "Thank you. You know what? I am. Thank you. I really am. I really, really am." Because my dad was the greatest singer everybody's ever heard. I became a great singer. My late father was an actor. I became an actor. Everything that he became, I became him. I walked, he laid those footsteps for me to follow. And one day he said, "Those are big shoes to fill in." "Don't worry, Dad. I'll outgrow them."
That's awesome.
But he was really instrumental in, like I said, our learning, our well-being, our safety. And like with all of us, 14 cousins who grew up together, boys, we used to practice our fighting, our protecting ourselves and each other. In case we get a whole bunch, we knew what to do and all that. The safety ring, and my uncles were all there. And my dad was the one who taught me about the tape.
Yeah.
So you don't break your knuckles.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So that's what I did with that mayor's boy. But he knew never to do that again.
Oh, yeah.
However, they transferred him from that school to another school. But that other school already knew that he was a bully because he's the mayor's son.
Oh.
Big deal,
Yeah.
That was funny though. That was really today. I'd never forget that boy.
Yeah.
I'll never ever forget that boy for what he's trying to do. Like he was smaller. He was smaller than I was, but stocky.
Oh.
Like he was built like a little bulldog. But it didn't matter to me none. He was just another boy. And that's what my brother was saying. He says, "You know what?" He said, even my brother, one hand in books in his hands, that other bully came after him because my brother was a boxer. He just punched him around. And that guy ran back in the bush and crying. His nose was broken.
Wow.
Again, we're brought into the principal's office. Why do these kids want to cut my hair? What is it about our hair that they want to cut? And that's when our lawyer brought in racism. Oh yeah, they're racist. And the women, they would just, the girls, all the white girls, always used to just love coming to just look at my hair. "Can I brush your hair for you?" No. So I grab my hair like this, I would brush it myself, all the way down like that. I never had my hair braids. I used to let it fly freely. Make them jealous. But that was the fun, the fun part about keeping my hair healthy. Watching what I ate. My grandmother, we had a big garden. always going in there because if you want to eat, you have to help out. And there was no way that you can get away from it. Other than that, you sit on the side, wait till everybody's done eating. You get what's left over. Why is it? Because you didn't help out. You have to earn your keep in this household. And helping out in the garden is not so bad. And we're every day, not every day, but when the harvest time comes, we're all sitting on the ground, taking the potatoes out, cleaning them up properly, and putting them in and packing them in 100-pound bags and storing them away for the winter. And my late grandmother used to, when the onion patch came, had a little onion about the size of a baseball, even a softball. Peel it at that, he throw it to me, he said, eat it now. I'd eat it like an apple. But you know what? Later on in life, I found out that this is the strong immune system protector. It really helped protect your immune system. An raw onion. I grew up and eating an onion all my life. People think I'm crazy. Are you going to scare the girls away? I said, it don't matter. As long as I'm healthy. That's all that mattered. My grandmother's rule was always safety and health. Looked after herself. Like I said, we didn't really have much drug world growing up. It was mostly alcohol that really affected my family. Drugs, now it's a now generation. My nephews, nieces, grandnieces, grandnephews, they're the ones that are affected in this drug world. However, it's up to us also to try and straighten them out. But you can't do that when they're in jail. And I told one of my nephews one time, I'm going to tell you what your grandpa told us one time. He said, hey, what's that? He said, you go to jail, you stay in there for your protection. Because when you come out, I'm coming after you for ruining my dad's good name. Because that's your grandfather. He just looked at me and said, that's what your grandpa told all of us, six of us uncles, all your uncles. He told us that. You ever go to jail, stay in there, because when you come out, I'm going to be there to beat the living daylights out of you because for ruining my good name. My dad never went to jail in his life. My grandfather never went to jail in his life. All my uncles never went to jail in their lives. That's how the safety in our family was taught, to stay away from these institutions. And yet, even the residential schools, stay away from them, or else we'll be bad people. That's what my grandma used to say. You go into those places that you're going to come out a bad person because you have so much hate, so much anger. So we're trying to protect you guys, and none of us, to this date, most of us are seniors now. We all look at that and said, remember that time with my grandma, my mom, my uncle, he's a year older than I am. So remember that time my mom told all of us that someday we'll reach up here now it's our turn to teach them. Well, I've been doing that a lot, all my life. I've been doing that with my brothers and my sisters, the younger ones, and my nephews and my nieces. I've been telling them all of that. Only 2 nephews have been in my family, been in jail left and right. They're trying to become drug dealers. They get more and more trouble. I think they're just the scapegoats from the real drug dealer. They take the fall. For what? But that was the harsh reality. The safety, the child rearing in our family was number 1. Safety of the kids, the safety of everybody. Child rearing was done by the grandma, my grandmother, and all my aunts and my uncles. The teachings came from all my uncles. My aunts and my grandma, my mother even. But, for all the safety and all the hard work that we do were from my dad and my grandpa, all my uncles. We had to work. There was no way that we could just sit around and do nothing. They made us work, which is okay with us because working is not so bad. In what year was it? 1961. 60, 61, I remembered, when we worked out in the fields. We were nomadic. Our family was nomadic. Because my uncle had a big grain truck. We traveled from farm to farm working. Back then, my dad were making $5 a week. Us kids were making $1 a week. And the women would make $3 a week. First, they said the men would go out one day and cut the, rather before swathers came in, they had to cut it by hand, right? The sickles. They'd be out there all day cutting this wheat one way, and make sure it falls one way. Like, they just didn't cut it every. The reason why it's one way like that, it has to fall one way. The women come along behind and they tie these things and they make stooks. And there a whole bunch of them laying there like that. And by the time they're done the field, all of us kids stood in a row. They used to tell us, we'll give you a penny for everyone. At the end of the week, you still get $1, no matter how many you put up, right? But we had to stand them up and make all of them. Like we had a race who could do the most. There were sections that we had to do, right? So what? They come back and help us out. And then you guys are done, they had to come back and help us out. It doesn't matter how fast you were. They got to stand up. And if some fell, we had to go back and put them back up again. Yeah, and that was the part that when I grew up in that way, like I learned teamwork was always the best way to do it. Don't ever, like my grandfather said, like we never leave our comrades behind. When all my cousins were a little, sometimes they were smaller than they're trying their best, right? So when we're done, I come back and I help them out and I'll talk with them. We'd laugh all the time. All my cousins would come along, they all help out, help this little boy, the youngest one, finish him. And even though he was small, he had a job. He had to do this. There is no play for us at that time. But when we did finish, there was always the soccer game. All the uncles, all the boys would play soccer. Oh yeah, we had a ball right in the open field, right? We'd all play soccer out there.
Awesome.
And then go to bed, and then even when they went hunting, all the boys were involved. But we don't have any rifles or guns, anything like that. So what? Who needs them? I even watched them how they snared a great big buck. They seen it over here. That's a number 9 wire. They stood 2 poplar trees like that. They bent them downwards to cross each other like that. And they tied them together and they put that loop in there. That big hoop. 2 of them, one from each tree. And then, and then they built little barricades and that, and they pushed that deer through there. When he went through there, the thing snapped. They hung the deer. He's ready to skin. Just let it die first, right? And that was, I never ever saw that.
Awesome.
But when they killed that big buck, they took it back to the camp, they skinned it, and all the women started working on it to make dried meat. Oh yeah, there's a whole rack of them right in the, they made a little, fire, where they smoke them, right?
Yeah.
Spruce, they got spruce boughs, put them on that thing, they covered it up. Oh my God, that deer meat, moose meat, whatever it was always the tastiest when it comes out. And said, how does that fire keep going? They said, when that thing fat melts, it just ignites it more, right? There we go. I never knew that, And the fat adds as a fuel igniter to keep the fire going, to keep that smoke going.
That's awesome.
It's good to learn stuff like that when I was a kid. And with my grandfather, my grandmother were very instrumental in helping us out. If we didn't know how to do it, my grandpa would come along, let me show you. He would show them. He would show us how to do this. And even growing up, learning how to sing with my grandfather, told me that one day, you're going to be the one to lead this family group. I said, why is that? Because you were the one with the natural voice. What do you mean? He said, well, you lead all of these boys, don't you? I said, you're the smallest one, yet you lead them. I said, yeah. Wow, okay. I was like, then when I was 10, he taught me how to make my first hand drum. The old traditional way. Wow. Go out to the birch, look for a birch tree, strip it like they do with cedar bark. Break it like that, lift it up, and then how far it goes. Grab another one, how far. Then they have these little things, they wrap them up like that, make sure, because that's how they're going to go. Wrap them up, and we go back to the camp. A table like this with 16, like, I don't know how many pegs are there, and we put that in there like that, all that, the birch, they really manipulate it, right?
Yeah.
And they use that spruce gum. The spruce gum, they boil that, cools down, it makes fantastic glue. And that's what it's up to a certain point where they boil it to where, where it's really adhesive. Man, that stuff was really, really strong. And then, when they applied the glue like that onto that thing, and they tie these little strings and holes through them, they make those things, compress those boards really tighter. So that when that ring is, when it looks at me, it'll look about this big when you wrap it. By the time it's done, you got about that much because you're squeezing it, right? Wow. I never knew that would work like that. And 'cause you're not going to see those holes. It's going to be covered up anyways, right? So I have an old drum at home as how they used to make them. Yeah, I still use that drum once in a while. Not very often, though. It was a gift. But today, I make my own drums. I even teach how to make hand drums, powwow drums, whatever they want to make, right? And this is what I do in Vancouver here. I teach singing here. I teach the art of culture in the prairie culture. That's what I know, what I grew up with. And it's been good. 30 years I've been here now in Vancouver. 1991, March 15th, I strolled into town. I didn't know anybody. But I pulled into the city here, started a whole new life. And I think I've done good. I think I've done really good for myself. Straightened my life out the way I was destined to. Got married, I found the right woman, a woman who doesn't drink or do drugs or anything like that, but very traditional, but she's a Christian too. But you know what, each for their own, right? But I've managed to find myself a life where I never thought a life could be had. I've never been to the West Coast in my life till I showed up here. I didn't even know I was going to come here. Flip of a quarter is how I came here. Heads, Vancouver. Tail, Winnipeg. Heads. Never been there so much. I jumped in my car and I left Edmonton 5:30 in the morning. March 15th. I got here 6:30 in the evening. Lived in my car for 2 weeks. But you know what? So what?
That's
it's
awesome.
a life.
Yeah. So I just have this book till noon time, but yeah.
Oh, so are we done now?
Yeah, but sorry, I usually don't like to do that, but I don't know if you have any, like, so I talked about a lot of stuff there and things, and a lot of good memories and stuff.
Yeah. For my thing that, a lot of people who are in the health and wellness field, think of yourself first before you think about somebody else. Look after yourself first before you look after somebody. Like, it's when they're smudging.
Yeah.
You smudge yourself first.
Oh, okay.
With all the sweet grass and everything. You smudge yourself first before you smudge somebody else.
Yeah.
So that's what I that's what I do today. That's what I teach also too.
Yeah. So you got a little taste of this sort of. So you'll be back for our next 3-4 sessions.
Yeah. For sure. If you want me to bring my drum, I'll bring my drum.
Yeah,
for sure.
Might the other guy there, he might be sitting here and I'll be over there and stuff.
Okay.
Like that, but yeah. So that's great. Yeah. Yeah. So really appreciative. You know.
Thank you
coming
for
back.
having me here.
Yeah. Yeah. It's awesome.
I'm sorry about being a little late, but parking and New West traffic.
Yeah.
Next time I'll leave an hour early.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then find a parking spot closer. I might even just park someplace over here and take a bus in. A lot
Oh,
cheaper.
Yeah. I park up the road here, and there's a parkade up there. Costs $7, $7.50. Yeah.
Oh, the one I parked over here is $7.50 a day, so
Oh,
that's
yeah.
what I paid.
Oh
here.
yeah.
Till 6 p.m. anyway.
Oh,
7:50.
yeah.
It don't matter to me,
Yeah,
as
yeah.
long as I'm safe there.
Yeah.
But now I have to walk up 3 flights.
Oh, yeah.
That's all right.
Awesome. Yeah. Great.
All right.
That's good.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. That's
All right.
great. Perfect.
Thank you. Yeah.
Awesome.